Learn the most advanced recruiting techniques. Land the most desirable talent. Launch your company towards massive success. This is the Higher Power Radio Show with Rick Girard.
You know, in today's market, people have options. They know that they're in the driver's seat. It is really not entirely your choice anymore. And here's the kicker. People are willing to totally walk away from your opportunity if you cannot effectively communicate the value above and beyond a paycheck. Today, we're going to talk about what's in it for them. Today's quote: "Our pain is the breaking of the shell that encases your understanding." Any idea who said that, Mr. William Tincup?
I don't know. I can't tell you.
It's a guy named Khalil Gibran, and actually I have no idea who he is, but it was like a really deep quote.
That's a pretty good quote.
I'm Rick Girard, and welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show. Our mission is to provide tactical solutions to solve your company's toughest hiring challenges. We share insights from top-performing entrepreneurs and industry experts like our guest today, Mr. William Tincup. He is the president of recruitingdaily.com. At the intersection of HR and technology, William is a sought-after writer, speaker, advisor, consultant, investor, storyteller, and teacher. He's been writing about HR-related issues for over a decade, and William serves on the board of advisors for about 20 different HR technology startups. Wow, when do you sleep, William? William understands what is working in the world of recruiting today, which makes him an expert on today's topic. William, welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show today.
Well, Rick, thank you for having me, and this is going to be fun, and I know it's going to go fast.
It's going to be real fun, and it always goes really fast for me. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about why in today's market people are willing to drop your company in a heartbeat. Then we're going to talk about how to stop that madness and provide you a little bit of a framework. So, William, I'm going to let you start this out by enlightening us. What do people want? People who are interviewing, or people who are passively looking for a job, or even actively looking for a job?
It's interesting because we've been through several, you and I have been through several cycles where it's been a high talent market and a low talent market, meaning supply and demand, right?
Yep.
Where there's more jobs than people, or more people than jobs. We're at that point right now where there are, more jobs than people.
A lot more.
A lot more, and especially in certain little areas, in certain sectors and job roles, it's really tough to keep people. So we're in that market where people have options. And,
yes, they do.
And so I think we have to think like they always have options. So on some level, I think that it's almost like free agency in any sport. We don't have to think. We shouldn't think about them just in their contract year. We should really be thinking about them the entire time in terms of how we engage them and communicate and just love them. Let's just put it in kind of a softer language. But right now, what candidates with options, which are the majority of candidates, your A and B talent for sure. They're coming with questions that we haven't really seen before now. And one of them is they want to know what's next. And internal mobility is something that, we're not great at in HR and recruiting, communicating kind of a career path. Okay, here's, Bill, here's where you're going to start. If you're successful there, you're going to go on to this thing. And then if you're successful there, you're going to go on to this thing. And having an idea of what that looks like is important to candidates today. More important than it was 5 years ago. I think 5 years ago, they probably wanted to know that, but they didn't ask it. Now, they feel emboldened to, in the interview process with the hiring manager and or recruiter or sourcer, to ask the question like, yeah, okay, that's cool, but, what's next? So that's the first thing, and that's kind of radically changed TA, or talent acquisition, and hiring, because we have to think about what's next.
Well, I'll tell you one thing they don't want, too, is they don't want to be sold.
Yeah.
A lot of us go into sales mode, but the fact is you really have to be able to demonstrate what's in it for them.
That's right. And you know what? They're not, if you pause and you can't answer the question. So let's just think about this in real terms. If a candidate asks you, it's like, hey, this looks great. I really think I can kill this job. And I think 9, 12, 18 months in, I know myself, my own personality. I'm gonna want to ambitious, if you want to call it that, but I'm going to want to know what's next. If you freeze and or don't have an answer, you've already lost that candidate, right?
Because emotional engagement is far more powerful than the money.
That's right.
And you know what? That's a clue. That's a clue for you to pick up on that. That's a pain point for them. They don't have that ability in their current role. So you have to pick up on that and drive it. And you have to take it a step further. So how are you going to make them better? How are you going to train them? How are you going to develop them, right?
That's number two. And it's interesting the words that they use there. Skill up. Train. What are you are you going to work on my strength and make them stronger? Are you going to work on my weaknesses and help me fill in the gaps? Like, they're coming to the table asking what are traditional learning and development questions, training and development questions, succession questions, if you will, because they want to know, that you have the investment, that you've put money aside, that you've got a program or programmatically, you know what to do with them, and they want that from you. Again, it's kind of like the deer in the headlights. If you freeze and or if you can't answer the question in a cogent way, you're dead on arrival. Yeah, you're dead away. They've already moved on. Like, they won't tell you, wow, you really didn't get that question right. They'll just go, hey, man, this is great. Okay, yeah, call me. And then that's it. The relationship's over.
They're off to the next one. And that's even if you've made it that far to have them on for an on-site interview. I mean, this is coming up in phone conversations quite a bit. Absolutely. At least on my end is, if you're the person who's reaching out to the candidate for the first time, you got to have answers to those questions. And then, of course, the leadership needs to be able to confirm those questions once they come on an on-site interview.
That's where we got to get our story straight. And we have to align our budgets and, we actually have to do the work. And what's interesting about that is we thought a couple of years ago the recruiting was going to peel away and either be completely independent of HR or join marketing because they have so much in common brand-wise. And the truth of the matter is the candidate has changed us and changed that direction so fundamentally that actually recruiting is going further into HR.
Is it really? Because I've seen a lot of companies that have actually separated HR from...
Well, you can separate it. You can put them on different planets. The problem is the candidates, i.e. the customers, are asking questions that are HR related. And so, again, if you separate them, you do that at your peril. Or you've got to have a really good communications, strategy to bridge the gap, which is fine. Like, I don't mind if recruiting is done in New York and HR is done in San Francisco, as long as they're talking and they got the same stories and the investments being put aside. Well, then that can work.
Well, it brings up the thought that maybe training and development should be more in alignment with talent acquisition the recruiting process.
It should, yes. Like what we used to do with training and development is after we onboarded them.
Yeah.
So months or years into the relationship, then we would go, well, we should probably put you on a training path. But you know what I find fascinating about that, and it probably bodes to what your idea is, during the sourcing and recruiting process, we find out things that they want to learn. Like we ask questions and they tell us answers and I've always wanted to learn Python and it's just like a little note. Like, we don't even think about it twice. We're on to the next interview question.
That's also when candidates are the most truthful too, in the very beginning, the first conversation. I mean, they're going to share with you everything they want, everything they desire. And that is an often missed piece of the equation.
If
much guessing goes on there.
Actually document that. Okay, so hear me out. If we were to actually document that, and then during the onboarding after offer acceptance, and then during the onboarding process, validate. Say, hey, you know what? You said early on that you wanted to learn Python. I just want to double check that. Is that still something important to you? It is great. You know what? Now let's put you on this path where you learn Python. So it's almost like you gather the data someplace, you validate the data, at a different place, probably at onboarding, and then you put them on a path.
It seems easy enough, but why don't we do it? That's a whole nother episode, but let's consider if whoever is reaching out to a candidate, i.e. the CEO of a company at an early stage or whoever's heading it up, maybe even the hiring manager, this should be something that should be commonly done.
Commonly. And the problem is we're using recruiting tactics, as you well know, we're using recruiting tactics that worked in the 80s.
80s? I was going to say the 50s.
You're probably right, actually. But we're not answering the questions of today. And you know what's interesting, Rick, is there's a lot of work that we can parallel that, like, what the work that's been done in customer experience. So the Ritz, Marriott, Applebee's, pick your favorite restaurant or retailer or hospitality establishment, etc. They know more about their customers than we ever know about our candidates. Yet they're essentially creating an experience. That's their job. Like, they're creating experience. So that what we could learn and borrow from. It isn't kind of recruiting tactics that kind of would get us there. It'd be creating better experiences, being thoughtful, and really kind of like sitting down and thinking about it, and just being thoughtful. Like, what do we want them to feel? What do we want them to think? What do we want them to smell? To hear? To, like, what do we want all of those things to be? And if we think it, we have a chance of making it happen.
And here's the thing, there are companies that are doing that. It's just done at a very small scale. And I think they're the ones that have the resources to be able to do it.
I'll go further. The resources, yes, but it isn't just money. These are thoughtful companies. It gets to the values of the firm. You can't fake thoughtfulness. You're either thoughtful or you're not.
So very true. If you're just joining us live on the podcast or live stream, you're listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. I'm your host, Rick Girard, and our guest today is William Tincup. He's the president of Recruiting Daily. I'll let you continue with that.
It's those experiences, micro experiences, and something to think about. Something as simple as, like, when they show up for their interview, what do we want them to experience? Thinking about it from the door. Before the door, okay, what's the email, what's the communication, what's the call, what's the reminder? What are all those things, those touch points? And if we think of like Marriott, Marriott, or your favorite restaurant, whatever. What do they do? They touch you at different points of that experience.
They're seeking to understand first. And that's what recruiting is understanding first. We have the whole model flipped. And everybody from the recruiting department to the hiring managers too. It's all about the positioning. And the situation is the positioning is all about, I have a problem, I need it solved.
That's right.
I understand that you have a problem, you need it solved, but let's flip the script and think about, okay, well, how do we solve this problem? Well, let's solve somebody else's problem with our problem.
That's and really, to your point, it's about getting to mutual fit, and really, it's just as important that we get the right candidate as it is that the candidate gets the right job.
We say this so often, and everybody confirms it, yet it comes down to a situation where they hire not Mrs. Right or Mr. Right, but Mr. or Mrs. Right now, the person who is the most available at the time. So we settle.
And we settle, and again, that's the divorce rate in America. So if you really want,
it's even higher in California, I think.
I don't know that to be true, but here's what I do know: when something like that happens, you go back and you think there had to have been some signs. Did I miss those signs? And again, it's fit and it's communication, it's trust, it's all these value-laden things. And these candidates that have options, one of the other things, Rick, that they really want from companies is they want to be recognized. They want to be praised. And they want to be, we can call it a lot of different things, pat on the back, etc. But we live now in a time where people are like, I know that I added value. It would be cool if you recognized that
and said, hey, attaboy.
Yeah.
An attaboy goes a long way. And I think it comes from our generation. I don't know. I didn't get a whole lot of attaboys from when I was growing up. And I'm sure my father's generation just got a kick in the ass. And now it's with the millennials and maybe Gen Z, which you and I talked about at one point. Man, there's a whole lot of attaboys. And so...
And
it's almost an overabundance of attaboys.
And you know what? We can, we can make fun of it and laugh at it and be sarcastic about it, which of course we should do.
No, I'm jealous of it. I didn't get any.
but You know this as a recruiter, you adapt or you die. And that process, that's people, that's technology, that's your candidate is, your customer is changing right before your eyes. Whether or not I got attaboys in high school or in my first couple of jobs or not even relevant to the equation anymore. It's our current candidates and customers. What do they need? And I all the way down to kind of highly personalized, finding out like, what do you need? When we say praise, well, that could be anything. Do you need more money? You want days off? You want us just kind of pull you in front of the public? You want it social? Like, how do you want to be recognized? These are questions we could easily find out to find out what they want, and then when it happens, do it.
So as we're developing people, the three kind of truths that I have found, right? And you mentioned one of them, really adapt or perish, right? If you're not adapting to what the people want, you're not going to be able to hire the people you need. So you might as well give back your funding and move on to something else. But when you're calling people and you're trying to get people engaged, nobody cares about you or your problems. They care about their own problems. So think about that in your positioning. It's super important because if I'm solving a problem for the person that I'm trying to recruit, then I've got a win-win situation across the board. And if I'm trying to push and just sell people on my opportunity and what I think is cool, the fact is you're just adding to the noise.
That's right. Well, we've all been around people that are really kind of self-centered, family members, at holidays or people at the office or whatever. But we've been around people that they never ask you about you. They never ask you about your family. They don't ask about anything in your background. They barely ask you about work. They're all about themselves. And
that reminds me of a famous person I met once. And the whole time that I was talking to him, I was stuck in a golf cart with this person. And the whole time, all they were talking about was them.
Yeah.
Let me tell you more about me.
Well,
that's great.
Well, it's funny. I was at a Final Four 100 years ago, and Coach K, I was coming out of the bathroom, and he was coming into the bathroom, and I opened up the door for him. I said, "Hey, Coach K." He's like, "No autograph." I'm like, "Well, I really wasn't wanting an autograph." But
I was opening the door. You're welcome.
I was just opening the door. Homie. That's all I was doing. But recruiters are, to your point, that's why I wanted to bring it back. Recruiters are self-centered. And have been self-centered for too long. I mean, the questions that we should be asking of those candidates should be about them first, and then to see if there's do these things kind of align? The thing that I've got and the thing that you want, do these things align in any way, shape, or form? Let's
give a little bit of a walkthrough because we're getting close on time here. How do we structure a system that's going to attract people to your company rather than repel them?
Well, I'm going to go hard to the left on you here because I think an employment brand should do both. A great employment brand should do both equally.
And I agree with you. If you're Google, then you got an employment brand. But if you're a small little company,
you don't have that.
You don't have it at all. And those are the ones that need the great people.
They do. And so it should be but again, telling the truth, being genuine. So to answer the question, it's being authentic with yourself, telling the people who you are, and being true to that word. Rackspace famously did this by letting their employees blog. And their employees would tell stories, hey, we drink, 15 Mountain Dews a day and work 120 hours a week, and we skateboard on the weekends together. If you like that,
then come join us.
Come join us. If you don't like that, cool. We can still be friends. We can still love one another. So I think that authenticity, and I mean, it's almost like you want to say you want to be so authentic that they get it immediately. Like I feel like I can be with these people.
Well, it's like you and me, right? People are going to love us or hate us.
Right. My bill, because my wife, she's not that way. 100. In fact, if someone ever says that they don't like my wife, I automatically know they're a psychopath. So
that's probably my way too. All right.
Something's wrong with that person.
All right. So let me just interject here. I'm going to say really what we're talking about is positioning. I mean, at the root of it, making sure that you give before you take. You want to gain understanding of the person first before you try to sell them on your opportunity. And I have a term that I use here and I use quite frequently, which is understand their career wound or their pain point, right? Everybody has a pain point. If you can heal their career wound with your job, you've got a win-win situation.
Well, you don't even think about it as a job. Like continue the medical analogy. You've got a treatment for their wound. If you've got a wound, let's recognize, let's agree on it, and then say, hey, I think I have a treatment here. It's not a job. It's not a thing. I think that what you need is something that we provide.
And all we have to do is just throw a Band-Aid on it, and boom, we're off to the races. Oh, man. I want to talk a little bit more, but we're just about out of time for today's show. William, thanks for your time.
Throw a little Neosporin on it, so it's done.
I got a Band-Aid and some Neosporin. Boom. So then your only job is really to connect the dots for them.
That's right.
And let them tell you why. We're just about out of time for today's show. Man, I want to thank you for joining us today, William, and your time investment. And I want to welcome you to the Higher Power Radio community. Now, I'm sure some of our audience members would love to find out more about you and recruitingdaily.com. How do they reach you?
Sure. I might be the easiest cat to find on the internet. It's literally type in Tincup to Google and you'll find me. But easy email address is Recruiting Daily is just my last name, Tincup, Tincup at recruitingdaily.com. Thank you for having me on the show. Thank you for letting me talk with the audience and love to be doing some more stuff with you in the future.
I'm right there with you, my brother. All right. I want to thank our listening audience for tuning in to this week's episode of Higher Power. A quick thanks to our team, our engineer, Paul Roberts, our creative director, Ayla Gerard, and our producers, Andrea Ballin and Shanti Ryle. If you're listening to the podcast, please rate, subscribe, and review. We need your feedback to bring more valuable content to you. You can join the Higher Power Radio community at Higher, that's HIRE, Power, POWER, radio.com. Or you can find us on all your various players like iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, and YouTube. If you're super brazen, you could probably follow me on Twitter. I'm at Rick_Gerard. So tune in next week. Our guest will be Monica Lukochek. She's an immigration attorney for the U.S. Immigration Law Group here in Orange County. I'm your host, Rick Gerard, and you have been listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. Aloha.
Thank you for listening to Higher Power with Rick Gerard on OC Talk Radio.